I would like to speak of the importance of Project Inspire. The inyan of Kiruv Rechoikim has become a word that organizations are trying to bring people closer to the Rabbeinu Shalom. But we have to realize it's not a mitzvah of organization. Every person, every yochid is mechuyev to be mekarav mention. We live in very troubled times. What do we learn from that? We learn from that as follows. The Kol Yisrael is considered like guf echad. And in guf echad, you can't differentiate this limb from another limb. And this is how we have to consider our brethren of Kol Yisrael. Kol Yisrael, they're so united. It's like one goof. Like one goof, we can't depart. We can't take them apart. This is how we have to care about our brethren. That's one goof. The Project Inspire is something that we have to be mechazek, because it teaches us that we can be mekarev Klal Yisrael wherever they are, whatever we do. Invite someone for a Shabbos, speak to someone nicely, friendly. That brings us together. And bringing us together, can we imagine a father that he sees that children are apart? How happy he is when children get together. How happy the Father is. And this is our Father in heaven. In that schus that we will get together more and care for one another. For
the last 2,000 years we have been crying. We have been crying for the Churban Beis HaMikdash. We've been crying for the violent slaughter of millions of Jews. We've been crying for the forced expulsions of entire Jewish communities. Now, one would have thought after 2,000 years, the crying would somehow come to an end. And yet, we still find ourselves crying. We are crying over anti-Semitism, not of the 1930s in Warsaw and Berlin, but we are crying over the anti-Semitism that sweeps throughout our American university system, turning some American Jewish students into self-hating Jews. We are crying for the loss of the best and brightest in our Jewish communities, for the youth who are being lost not to the armies of the czars, but to the mean streets of their own communities. We are crying for the assimilation and intermarriage of millions of Jews who forsake the time-tested values of Torah for the abyss of meaningless assimilation.
Can a lunatic state like Israel be trusted?
So you see our support for Israel as having in some way did cause 9/11.
Israel had been harvesting organs from slain bodies, including Palestinians.
Four men arrested in an undercover FBI sting and charged with a plot to blow up 2 synagogues in the Bronx.
But I don't think 6 million Jews were gassed.
Authorities in California are urging Jewish schools and temples to stay alert following a shooting at a synagogue in L.A.
Tell them to get the hell out of Palestine.
Where should they go? What should they do?
They go home.
Where's the home?
Poland.
So the Jews,
Germany.
During the darkest of time, the Torah tells us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will redeem us. V'shav Hashem Elikecha v'kibetzcha mikol ha'amim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will return us from the terrible gullus, will collect us from among all the nations. And Chazal point out, Yoshiv loy nemar, it would have been appropriate to say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will return us. And yet the Torah says, V'shav, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will return kavayachol, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself is in the gullus with us. As we cry during this long and bitter gullus, HaKadosh Baruch Hu cries with us. In fact, the highest form of mourning, according to Mekabalim on Tisha B'Av, is to cry for the Tsar of the Shechina, is to cry for the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is crying with us. Are we in fact doomed to repeat this entire process again next year? Or might there be some way that we could create a change that would affect the future of the Jewish people, that would break the pattern that's been established over a 2,000-year timeline, that could rebuild the Beis HaMikdash, and in the process, wipe away a tear. Over the next few moments, we're going to meet some seemingly ordinary people who have accomplished extraordinary things. And they did this by realizing that it was Sinas Chinam that brought the Beis HaMikdash down. These people, listening to the same news stories that you and I do, have concluded that these are in fact powerful messages from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, urging us to rebuild the Beis HaMikdash through Ahavas Reim, through Ahavas Chinam, and through taking responsibility for Klal Yisrael.
You know, you have all these Israelis in the mall who don't have any connection to the Jewish community around them. They're away from home.
Seeing these Jews every day so disconnected from Torah, so disconnected from their Judaism, really, really pained me.
There are probably a good 2,000 students who weren't involved in Jewish life at all, weren't part of that vibrant community, weren't celebrating Shabbat, and weren't connected to Judaism.
And I have lived in neighborhoods where, you know, your next door neighbor, people on the street don't want anything to do with Yiddishkeit.
I began thinking what's going on with the Yiddish nation, and it really pained me. And I thought someone has to do it.
Many people erroneously think that Kiruv can only happen under carefully supervised conditions. And yet, we're going to find that Kiruv can happen in the most unlikely of places. We're going to look in on Jeremy Stamen as he literally goes shopping for Kiruv.
I'm Jeremy Stamen. My wife Hannah and I have been living in Baltimore for the last 20 years. I'm a graphic designer and my wife is an ultrasound technician, and we have 2 sons. One of the things that had a profound impact on us was last year's Project Inspire video, One Soul.
You know, the Chofetz Chaim says, in Chomas Hadas, he says, you'll go down the street and you see a guy drowning. You're going to go in and save him. You don't know how to swim. Oh, the poor guy, he drowns. But if every day you go and you see people drowning, then you have an obligation to learn how to swim.
You couldn't help but leave that movie wanting to do something and trying to figure out what you can do. Shortly thereafter, my wife Hannah had the idea, you know, you have all these Israelis in the mall who don't have any connection to the Jewish community around them. They're away from home. Why don't we try and get them to join us for Rosh Hashanah, to our shul, to our home? We can begin to make a connection with them. Around that time, I had seen a flyer. Project Inspire had a question and answer phone conference call with Rabbi Milstein. And I figured, well, I'll go on the conference call and I'll ask if anyone has any advice on how to be Makar of Israelis, how to speak to them, how to deal with them. So I asked the question on the call, and sure enough, someone else who was on that phone call that day from Minneapolis answered the question. He said, well, I go to the Mall of America every Thursday night with hot kugel, and I always end up with Israelis at my table Friday night. I said, behold the power of kugel. My wife, Hannah, figured we'll bring challahs, we'll bring kugels, we'll go to the mall Thursday night, Friday, we'll give out some food, we'll make some connections with these Israelis there. They were very receptive, especially the first day when I came with my credit card in hand. They were glad to sell me cosmetics, which probably were half a month mortgage for the nail polish. And in the process, I started schmoozing with them, and we started making a connection. And I gave them the challahs and kugel. And when I showed up the next week, they remembered me. So every Thursday night or Friday, we pack up our bags with fresh kugels and challahs, head off to the mall, and we make our rounds. Still hadn't succeeded in getting them to our home for a Shabbos. So we made up a nice invitation. I'm a graphic designer, so we had the assets of the studio at work, and we made up a nice invitation in Hebrew, inviting them to our home for a party in our sukkah. We started talking it up to them, and we told them it would be from 9 to 11 p.m. I didn't want to scare them. I didn't want them to think they were going to be stuck at our house for 5 hours. I wanted to make it friendly and approachable. One by one, we went to the different booths, and we told them what we were planning, we gave out the invitations. They seemed really interested. I guessed that we were going to have somewhere between 10 and 25 people coming to the sukkah. So many of them said that, yes, we want to come, we're going to be there. And sure enough, Friday night, one by one they filed in the door. The conversation was great. The camaraderie was great. They loved making kiddush and hamotzi and washing. We sang. I prepared a Dvar Torah. Over Sukkot, when we did go with the lulav and esrog, we had some wonderful experiences then too. Again, no pressure. We asked, would you like to take the lulav and esrog? Some people said yes, some people said no. But I asked one of the women, why don't you want to do it? And she said, sheepishly, in Hebrew, I don't really know how to do it. I was like, oh my gosh, all these days I've been coming, and I didn't give her the opportunity to do it because I didn't offer to help her with it. And my wife swooped in and helped her say the bracha. And so on that last day of Hoshana Rabbah, of last Sukkot, she was able for the first time to make a bracha on the lulav and esrog. It's now almost a year that we've been doing this, and almost without fail, every week we're in the mall. There are so many Jews out there that want to make that connection. They're waiting for this. They're waiting for us to stretch out our hands so that they can grasp on. They may be a little reluctant at first, but they really want it.
What could be more ordinary and humdrum than going to work? We're going to meet a gentleman who turned his daily commute to work on the train into an opportunity to reach Jews who were simply unreachable.
My name is Daniel Hadar. We live in Silver Spring, Maryland, in the Woodside community near the Metro. I work as an intellectual property attorney for the United States Postal Service in-house. I do stamps and fun things like that. I walk the Metro every day, and I take the Metro into my office, where it takes me pretty much right into where I work. Being on the Metro every single day, I realize that you have a tremendous opportunity to meet people. I'm on the Metro for about 25 minutes, heading straight to work. And it's a place where there's some quiet time, but there's also a lot of action and bustle. And I started to meet Jewish people. People started to bagel me. Some people would come over and say, Shabbat Shalom, it's my father's yortzeit, things are going on. And I recognize this is really an opportunity to catch these people and engage them in a more serious fashion.
Seeing these Jews every day so disconnected from Torah, so disconnected from their Judaism, really, really pained me. And I came to a point where I said, you know what, I can do something about this. It was almost like a metaphor that this was the train to nowhere. They were on a train to nowhere. It was time for me to say, I need to step out of my comfort zone. I can do this. And I did. I tried and I did. And by connecting with them, it really made a difference.
Once I realize that someone's Jewish, I'll come over and say, why don't you come to my house for Shabbat? Before they can even turn around, I'll go ahead and just introduce myself as Daniel Hadar. I work here at the Postal Service, and we have a lot of people for Shabbat. If you give me your email, I'll send you an invite. 90% of the time, people accept the invitation, and people will give me their email, and when I email them, they will respond. At first, they're a little bit timid. And then when I say, you know what, we're having a bunch of people over, they get a little bit more comfortable. And then when they say, can I bring a friend? I say, sure. That gets them a little bit more of a comfort level. And they're still a little bit, worried, nervous to go to this person's house. They have no idea who this person is. But as soon as they come into the house and they see the kids and they see more people and they see a warm house, they totally relax and they just get involved in it. And people have come and said, this has been an unbelievable opportunity for my life. And I had a chance to touch my Judaism even this one time. And from there, they have got interested in it and it's taken off. I was on the Metro, and this happened right before Rosh Hashanah. I had walked on, and I had only 2 stops to go. And I saw this Jewish young guy who had some Hebrew on his backpack. And I said, wow, are you Jewish? He said, yeah. I said, what are you doing for Rosh Hashanah? He says, nothing. I said, why don't you come over? He said, what do you mean? I said, to my house. I said, we have a lot of people, and it's festive, and it's a very special time of year. And I only had about 5 minutes because we were having the next stop. And he started asking me questions about Rosh Hashanah. I said, those are great questions. I don't have time getting off the metro. Here's my card. Please email me. I'd love to have you. He emails me. I invite him over. He comes over with his uncle, 2 cousins, and another friend of his. In fact, I wasn't even expecting them to come. He said he's going to try to come. So we didn't even have room at the table. We ended up bringing another table in, putting them in. They were so inspired by what had happened and by the meal that they came over the next night. This guy ended up telling me that he was amazed to connect with his Judaism, that his family never connected, and he wants to go to Israel because he wore this backpack that I saw him wearing that talked about his trip to Israel that he never went on. We had hooked him up with a program, and he went to Israel, and the last I heard, he's still there. I had a small window of time with these people, and I realized that this is it. And I said, you know what? It's now or never. That step of saying, you know what? This is your chance. Push me to say, at least give it a shot. You'll maybe never see these people again. You maybe won't have ever a chance. It was the opportunity of that moment in time to say, you know what? You've just got a moment. Try to take it.
Invisible Jews seem to be all around us, but Daniel Hadar figured out a way to surface them and to reconnect them with their ancient heritage and with the Torah HaKadosha. There's no better way to understand this than through the words of Rabbi Zev Lev Shlita.
The Zohar says that Yisrael is an acronym. It stands for the following words: Yeh Shishim Ribui Osios LaTorah. There are 600,000 letters to the Torah. The idea being, simply, that there are 600,000 letters in the Torah, there are 600,000 root souls of the Jewish people, and every Jew is a letter in the Torah. There's only one problem with that. There aren't 600,000 letters in the Torah. So you say, okay, plus or minus a few, gematrias are never exact. So how many letters are there in the Torah? 304,588. That's not plus or minus 1 or 2. That's like 300,000 are missing. So unless we have the Reader's Digest condensed version, something's wrong. So what does it mean? I know about 11 answers to that question. The Pnei Yehoshua speaks about it in Kedushin. But Lefi Aniyus Daiti, there's no question. The question would only be if it said, Yesh Shishim Ribui Osios Batorah. There are 600,000 letters in the Torah. Then it's not true. There aren't 600,000 letters in the Torah. And you need to somehow answer that question. But if it said, Yesh Shishim Ribui Osios Batorah, it wouldn't spell Yisrael. It would spell Yisrael. In order to spell Yisrael, it has to be Yesh Shishim Ribui Osios La Torah, which means the following. There are 304,000 letters in the written Torah, but that Torah is not complete unless you add another 600,000 letters. And those 600,000 letters are the souls, the root souls of the Jewish people, and we're all part of a cluster of souls that are part of those root souls of Klal Yisrael. The Torah is not complete, and yet unless Yesh Shishim Ribi Osios La Torah, added to the Torah, connected to the Torah. And unless every Jew is connected to the Torah is not complete. And just like in the written Torah, if one letter is missing, the Torah is not a Torah. If one Jew is missing, then the Torah is not a Torah. So until all Jews recognize their heritage and are part and bring out their letter that has to be added to the Torah is incomplete.
The daily grind of attending classes on campus can hardly be considered an ideal environment for doing kiruv. And yet, here is a young man who saw an opportunity in going to school every day on the campus of the University of Pennsylvania to attract not just 1 or 2 Jews to Yiddishkeit, but to create a nationwide movement of young Jewish college students. Rachmana Liba Boi. Please meet Hart Levine.
Everyone always used to brag about how amazing and how strong and how vibrant the Orthodox community at the University of Pennsylvania was, and it really was. There's 7 minyanim a day, and a lot of shiurim and chesed programs, and activities and tishas and guest lectures, and it was really great. But one of the things I started realizing was there were probably a good 2,000 students who weren't involved at all in Jewish life, weren't involved in the community, weren't celebrating Shabbat. As someone who cared about Judaism and cared about the Jewish community, and found it to be a problem that there were so many people who weren't involved, I thought this was something that I should at least try and make a difference. I realized there's a large community of really passionate, vibrant, and involved and active Jewish students. And I realized that if these students can really reach other students in a way that no organization could. So we wanted to find ways to create Jewish experiences to share with our friends, to invite them to Shabbat dinners, to set up one-on-one learning programs, to get them involved in holiday experiences. Ways that we can make Judaism relevant to them. And we sat down and had a meeting, probably 15 of us one January evening. And we said, here's the problem, here's the situation, what can we do to make a difference? And one of the things we thought of doing was having Shabbat dinners. And we had a Shabbat dinner. We set up a table, we started with Shalom Aleichem and explaining what Shabbat was. And most people stayed for around 2 hours. They had a great time. There were around 3 or 4 people who stayed for a good 4 hours. And they wanted to sing Zmirot, and they wanted to learn Israeli songs, and they wanted to talk about Judaism and ways to get involved in social action through the Jewish community and be a part of it. And it was amazing. I'd never met these people before. And I couldn't believe how excited they were to be involved in it. At a certain point, we realized we were really making a difference in the Jewish community, reaching people at Penn. Then I thought, hey, what about other colleges which didn't have a big Jewish community? And I wonder if we as students could meet these other students and share a vibrant, exciting Jewish experience with them. So somehow we got in touch with the University of Kentucky through a friend who was going to speak there, and we heard that out of 20,000 students, there were around 200 Jewish students. We rented a car, and 7 of us drove down to Kentucky. It's a good 13-hour drive. And we got there, we set up camp, and we had, and we made Shabbat in one of the classrooms. And 15 students and professors showed up. People who had never been to Shabbat before, people who didn't know other Jews in college. It's probably the first Shabbat in the University of Kentucky in quite a while. The way holidays work at Penn is a lot of the religious students go home. So Pesach especially, all the Orthodox students go home. And then left at Penn are all these Jewish students who don't have a Seder at home to go to or don't care enough about Seders to miss classes. But yet somewhere in the back of their mind, their grandfather said something or for something it means for them to come to a Seder. So I heard about this, what was going on at Penn, and I turned to my parents. I said, Mommy, Tati, I love you, I love Seders at home, but here's what's happening at Penn. I'm going to stay at Penn to lead Seders this year. And my parents understood. They wanted me to be home, but they understood what I was doing. And I spoke to some other students in the Orthodox community. By the end, we had 15 students who decided to stay at Penn that year to lead Seders. And we prepared, we had sessions, different rabbis came in and told us, prepared and how to run discussions, how to run a halachic Seder for people who don't know what halacha or what a Seder is. And between the 2 nights, around 150 students came to our Seders. Some of them were the first time walking into the Hillel building. And it was amazing. The Seder lasted for around 5 hours. These are people, some of them never been to a Seder before. Some of them they said they'd been to Seders before, but it was normally half an hour around the kitchen table. And they were so excited and thrilled that someone cared about them and shared such a meaningful experience with them. And we talked and we sang and we danced on tables and people told their family stories and we went around and shared ideas and we had discussions and it was amazing. Afterwards people said, thank you, Hart, for giving me the first meaningful Jewish experience of my life. But at a certain point, around 2 years ago, I realized, wow, this is really making a difference. And I realized it's not unique to the campus at University of Pennsylvania. There are a lot of colleges which have dozens or hundreds of religious Orthodox students and probably thousands of uninvolved students. So these ideas could work just as well. Shabbat dinner, that's not unique to Penn. So I started speaking to friends and friends of friends at other colleges who I knew cared about Judaism and cared about the Jewish community. I started sharing these ideas with them, and they're like, this is exactly what our campus needs. So I ended up running a Shabbaton for around 50 students from 15 different colleges. We came to Penn and we sat down and students went back to their campus and they started groups of their own. Some of them started running Shabbat dinners at their colleges. Some students stayed on campus to run Seders at different colleges. Now there are groups of students starting at maybe 10 or 20 different universities. When I'd first go around meeting people or inviting them to Shabbat dinners, at first they say, oh, are you from this organization? Are you from that organization? I'm like, no, I'm just Hart Levine. I'm a junior in bioengineering. So my friends started calling it the Hart Levine Project. based around the personal nature of it. As it started to grow, you couldn't actually call it that. So instead we call it Heart to Heart, which is based on the original name, but also it's about sharing meaningful and loving relationships and building a Jewish community around loving principles. And some people say, oh, Hart, only you could do it because your name's Hart. I say, yeah, but everyone has a heart that they could share with someone else.
Little did Hart Levine realize how far and wide his activities would spread. Rabbi Pesach Krohn teaches us that every act of kiruv is an act where we're planting a seed that can yield tremendous results.
Listen to this expression. We should live with this. Anyone can count the seeds in one apple. You don't have to be a big chacham to open an apple and count the seeds. But only Hashem can count the apples in one seed. Imagine how brilliant that is. Anyone can count the seeds in one apple, but only Hashem can count the apples in one seed. That one seed of chesed, it made that other fellow from. Now he has children. Eventually he'll have grandchildren. That's what we came here for this Shabbos. We came to become those who will plant seeds. And what I added to this expression is plant seeds so that others will reap.
Everyone bemoans the fact that we have lost our sense of community. We've become disjointed. We've become too disparate. Larry Deverett of Toronto, Canada, is a person who has understood this need and has used it to create a very powerful kiruv tool.
We lived in a community north of Toronto called Thornhill Woods. And in Thornhill Woods, there's about 3,000 families, of which about 50% are Jewish. How do we know this? My daughters and I walked on every street and counted the mezuzahs on the doors and did a quick census. One of the ideas we had was young families need entertainment for children. How do I know this? I'm in marketing, and you take the McDonald's formula, the successful formula. Entertainment for children is what drives people to events. We thought, if we can bring families together through entertainment, kosher entertainment, then we can reach out to them and have a connection. So what we decided to do was have park events, and we called it Wednesday Night in the Park. And the idea was to have, through the summer, a succession of between 6 and 9 park events. We did this 2 summers in a row, where we would hire an entertainer, either a magician, a clown, a kid singer, and they would come to, the idea would be they would come to the park, we would advertise it, give out balloons, and make it very fun and engaging for kids. So to start this, what we did was we printed up a flyer to let people know that there would be entertainment in the park for 6 Wednesdays in a row. And we walked on every street, door to door, my daughters and I, and handed out a flyer on every door in the neighborhood that had a mezuzah. We figured if they have a mezuzah, they must represent that they're Jewish. And we literally just put a flyer in their door, and then we did some advertising as well. Of course, by walking on every street, we got to know how many Jewish homes there were in the neighborhood. We started off the first evening. It was a beautiful evening, and there was probably 150 or 200 families that came to the park. It was a very good event in the sense that every Wednesday I would be the MC, and I would introduce, just say hello to people in the neighborhood, tell them a little bit about what was going on in the Jewish community within the neighborhood. By about the 3rd or 4th week, we actually invited some Jewish groups to come out and set up tables around the perimeter of where the entertainment was happening. It's various different groups, some of the local Hebrew schools, some shuls. Most of the people that came, in fact, I'd say almost entirely all of them were secular Jews. Didn't really know much about Judaism, but very much appreciated having the opportunity to interact with their neighbors, meet some of the Jewish families in the neighborhood, and get to know that there was a shul in their neighborhood and that there was Jewish programming going on. Just even to meet the rabbi of the community or meet some of the families in the neighborhood, just to shake hands, say hello in a very comfortable and relaxed mode. So we did this the first summer for 6 weeks. Second summer we did it again, we repeated it, and I would say within the community we probably touched at least probably 2,000, maybe 2,500 people over the course of the 6 weeks. Very, very successful events.
There's no one methodology that's perfectly suited for every kiruv situation, just as there's no environment that's going to foster kiruv every single time. We're going to meet someone who lives in an environment that would seem to be ill-suited to do kiruv, and yet He has probed his environment, he has probed his surroundings, and has come up with an amazing program that has not only transformed his own backyard in Monsey, New York, but has literally changed communities throughout the United States of America. In my favorite Kiruv story, please meet Reb Aryeh Royd.
My name is Aryeh Royd. I was brought up in Manchester, England, and I got married here in Monsey, New York, around 7.5 years ago, and I've been here since. I've been learning at Kollel, and I'm still Baruch Hashem in Kollel, full time. But once I've begun the training through Project Inspire, I was opened to a new world which I was never exposed to. How many people out there are not from, and the assimilation rate, which I began thinking, what's going on with the Yiddish nation? And it really pained me. And I thought someone has to do it. And if we don't get each and every one of us to care about our fellow Yid, we're not going to make this happen. So I just began thinking, what could we do? And of course, being nice to people in the street, starting chavursas with people I meet. With Baruch Hashem, I was very successful in finding people who were interested in learning with me. So I was walking in the street one day, and someone stopped me. He was riding a bicycle, and he stopped me and he asked me directions to local mall. So I asked him if he's Jewish, and he says he is. So we had a friendly talk, and after schmoozing half an hour, obviously I gave him the directions, but more than that, we exchanged telephone numbers. And this was over a year ago, and ever since we've been friendly, and I will learn with him once a week, chavursa, either over the phone or we get together in the park, we learn together. The more Kiruv training I attended, the more I saw and the more I heard what is going on in the world. And I found out all about the terrible intermarriage assimilation, what's going on in North America, and I thought, we have to do something about it. And if I don't do it, who will? And it's not just me. I try to encourage my friends to do it. And after all, people ask, well, what, is this for a Hasidic younger man to do Kiruv? And I think on the contrary. Wasn't that a thing which Baal Shem Tov used to do, going around, traveling to the Pashat Yidden and to teach them what Yiddishkeit is about and show them the beauty of Yiddishkeit? That is Hasidus. Another initiative we had was setting up a tent outside the supermarket before Pesach. As we know, people from all over come to Jewish supermarkets before Pesach to shop for their Pesach needs. I met many people from outside of Monsey, from Westchester, from Pennsylvania, secular people who observe to a certain extent Pesach, and they came to Reckon Kosher to buy their Pesach needs. Therefore, we set up a tent outside the supermarket in the parking lot. And we had a few guys inside the store walking up and down the aisles, telling them that there's a Pesach tent outside. So we sent in secular people to come to our tent, and we had there a whole Pesach expo. We had a Seder table set out, and we had a lot of literature on Pesach, which we gave to them. We had a computer screen set up with Ish videos about Pesach, and it was a very exciting experience for them. The reaction of people who came into the tent were so excited of what they saw, because they only know, to their knowledge, Pesach is just the minimum of what they saw in their home, and they only keep, to a certain extent, Pesach. And when they came into the tent, they saw so much more to learn about Pesach, and we taught them, and they went away feeling more excited over the Yom Tov. So I tried to come up with an idea, what we could do something unique, which I could share and give my contribution to the Yiddish nation by doing Kiruv, and what could I do with my Hasidic friends do, which no one else could do. How could we make a contribution? Until we came up with this idea called the Traveling Hasidim.
Traveling Hasidim is, we're going to travel around the country, all over the United States, wherever we are invited to. We're going to try to enhance the Achdus and Jewish unity and Jewish love, and through the Hasidic warmth and spirit and dancing and singing.
We got to Philadelphia, we saw on the bulletin board outside the Yesh Center Welcome, join us for Shabbos with the traveling Hasidim.
The latest Shabbos we were at, the whole Reform and Conservative community joined.
They all come over and say, you guys were great, this Shabbos was amazing, this Shabbos is really beautiful, you should come again.
Recently, there was a Shabbaton held in the 5 towns of New York. In attendance happened to be a group of Israeli Chayalim.
The Israeli Chayalim, when they saw us, they were shocked. What do Hasidim want to have with us? They were just blown away, and we exchanged telephone numbers, email address, and we've been in touch since.
So everyone danced together, sang together. It was a nice Shabbat. Thank you all so much.
One of the great tools we use when we go out for Shabbos is the music, the singing, the dancing, because that's something that everybody can connect. It's something that connects to the neshamas.
We've been in touch with many of the participants. We have one-to-one chavursos over the phone, and they've grown a lot in Yiddishkeit since.
What Project Inspire taught us is that Kiruv is not something that should be left only to professionals. It's something that we all can do in our own ways, and we're all part of it.
By traveling around the country to communities who are less affiliated than us, we are showing them A, the beauty of Yiddishkeit and Shabbos, which they've never experienced such exciting Shabbos before, and B, which is much more important, we show them that we are one family. And even us, ultra-Orthodox, Hasidish, are coming to their communities who are totally unaffiliated, and we are bonding with them and enjoying a Shabbos together. We are showing them we are one family.
The most important component in successful outreach is caring. After that, it's up to each and every one of us to take some concrete action, to step up to the plate and actually go out and do Kiruv. For some of us, this is something that's quite uncomfortable. We're just not prepared to take on the unknown situations out there. And it is for this reason that Project Inspire has created the Home Kiruv Training Seminar, where we walk people through situations they're likely to encounter every day in outreach and give them the steps that they need to take to successfully navigate those straits. Come listen with me for just a moment as we look in on one such Kiruv training seminar in Lakewood, New Jersey. Every one of us has an ability, and there's no two people. Some people are prevented from doing Kiruv because they say, what if they ask me a question that I can't answer? If they ask me a question I can't answer, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I won't be able to answer a question. What am I going to say? What am I going to do? So I'm going to get involved in Kiruv. I can't get involved in Kiruv. So the first thing is, there's a fantastic answer to every question that you don't know the answer to. It's an emes answer, and it's always effective, it always works, and the answer is, I don't know. But I'll check it out, and I'll get back to you. In Kiruv, that's marvelous. That some of us think that somehow, if we get involved to do Kiruv, somehow our ruchnius is going to suffer. And the answer is, doing Kiruv will definitely affect your ruchnius, but in a good way.
The idea that you can touch the life of another Jew in such a profound way, and in such a simple way, and in such an easy way, is just so powerful. It inspires us. It makes us better Jews. Doing Kiruv is not just for them. It's at least as much for the meaning it brings to our lives.
When you engage somebody in a real way and they are inspired, you can't help but be inspired yourself. So now you get addicted to it because your whole Rosh Hashanah table, your Shabbat table is a different experience because people are so inspired to be there. You recognize how inspiring it is to be at your own table. The kids get inspired by that, by people wanting to be over. And now my kids, when we don't have guests, say, where's the guests? Can we invite more people? Maybe we should go to the street, maybe we should go to the metro and get some more people over. It really changes your meal experience, and it changes, your way to engage not just the Jewish people, but yourself when you realize how much it really means.
When I started sharing these ideas with other students, some people came to me and they said, Hart, isn't this the Kiruv organization's job? And I said, maybe, but this is something that's also important to me. And as someone who cares about Judaism and the Jewish community, this is something I can get involved in also, and I can make a difference to one person or a few people. And every person can relate to different people differently. I really ended up deepening myself and learning from other people and being able to share with other people really helped me grow a lot Jewishly.
By being able to share those ideas, it enriches our lives in the sense that as a student you can learn a lot, but as a teacher you learn more. So when you're giving over knowledge, when you're being able to give over kindness and hospitality, then it actually gives you more pleasure in life.
It's not the actual Pesach tent we set up, or it's the traveling Hasidim, traveling around the country, showing Shabbos experience. It's the feeling we had that we have to change the world and we have to do something. The more I'm involved in Kiruv, the more it has changed my life tremendously. It's changed my whole family's life, because our whole outlook in Yiddishkeit is different, as we are constantly speaking to other people about Yiddishkeit, and we're telling them how nice it is and how the beauty of Yiddishkeit, and we like to share a Shabbos meal with them. So obviously we have to make it for ourselves more enjoyable if we want to share this to someone else. So it's completely changed my outlook, and Baruch Hashem, we are much happier of our Yiddish heritage through Kiruv.
Tayari Yidden, look around. There is no Beis Hamikdash yet. We are still in a long and bitter gullus. Eretz Yisrael is threatened in ways that are unprecedented. There is a nation that's militant, that's filled with hate, that has us in their nuclear crosshairs. There are rockets still falling on a city called Deverett in Eretz Yisrael. There are children who are scampering every single day when the sirens sound, trying to escape the horror of another hit. Meirei v'Rabbaisai, there's so much that we could do to change this matzav. If I could just ask you to join with us and create a new achdus, to care about Achinu B'nai Yisrael, who are estranged from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who live far, far away from our communities, who really have no personal connection at all with their Yiddishkeit. If we could somehow reach out to them, we could bring the Geula. If we could somehow use the tools that were prepared by Project Inspire to create home Kiruv training seminars, for you to host these seminars, for you to sponsor these seminars, for you to give us the information that we need so we can contact you and make sure that this becomes a reality, then who knows, we might be that generation that's Zeiche V'Roya B'Vinyana. If we care enough to shed a tear, if we cry along with the tears of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if we take action today, and if we do the things that we need to do to wipe away a tear, we will certainly be of the generation that contributes to the binyan of the Beis HaMikdash and to the Bias Goyal Tzedek B'Meher V'Yameinu. Amen.